my first slide basically shows the map of the world and the countries labeled in different colors. And according to United Nations, there are currently 195 countries in the world. Just want to show you how big the world is, and it's very rich in design and art concepts. And this is our purpose today, to look at some of the concepts from different countries. Okay. So we all feel confined during the past 2 years. Confined means 局限 by this 疫情 pandemic. So I want to use this opportunity to travel together around the world, especially the countries that I have visited in the past. So this talk is to give you an overview of how art and design are integrated, 被融合在生活里面 in the countries I have visited. Also to inspire you with various motifs, materials, and forms. So, and lastly, to show you examples of cultural creativity industry and his related products. And I give you the Chinese definition of cultural creativity industry, 文创产业, which is quite hot in Taiwan, and we see a lot of products from this industry. So first, let's go to Philippines. In this slide, we show you, I show you banana trees. In Taiwan, we see lots of banana trees, but those banana trees are grown for their fruit. But the banana trees, some of the banana trees grown in the Philippines are for their fiber. And in this picture, I show you that kind of banana tree, which is called abaca. They're cut open with layers taken from the stem. And this is where they will extract the fiber. So abaca is the source of banana fiber, and is one species of banana. It's a non-fruit-bearing species of banana. And why is banana fiber important? Because it's considered the strongest of all natural fibers, being 3 times stronger than cotton and 2 times stronger than sisal fiber. And additionally, banana fiber is more resistant to saltwater decomposition. And therefore, in the early days, banana fiber is great for making marine ropes and hawsers. Marine means 海洋的. So all these 绳子用在海里的 and the hawsers were made of banana fiber. Next, I will show you a simplified process in extracting 萃取 banana fiber. First, the banana stem is harvested. Stem means 树干. So 树干 is harvested, is collected, 被收集, and the stems are peeled. 剥皮 to extract sheath. Sheath basically means the layers inside the stem. So all these layers, once collected, are fed or put into machine. And this machine has the ability to separate the fiber that the workers is able to sun dry the extracted means 萃取 the fiber for a day. And once the fiber is dry, they are ready for craft. And lots of handicrafts are made out of banana fiber. And in the Philippines, banana fiber is also known as Manila hemp. And the banana fiber production is centered mainly in the Philippines. And the banana fiber is the textile made out of banana fiber is great with natural dyes, as it is porous. However, the synthetic dyes, synthetic means 合成的. When we say synthetic, it mostly means chemical. The chemical dyes will be too acidic for this fiber. And there is a comeback of natural dye. So this is a great fiber for that purpose. Next, we'll look at some of the examples made out of banana fiber. There are a lot more examples. I just pulled some from the product lists. And here you see placemat. Placemat is 餐店. And you see cloth napkin. Napkin, 餐巾纸. But napkin can also be cloth. So you can see that over there. You can see kimono made out of banana fiber. Also flip-flops. Flip-flops is 夹脚拖. So those are in addition to other things such as banknotes, 纸钞, ropes and paper. And remember, banana fiber can also be blended with cotton or wool to make blankets, carpets, and rags. So its use is quite wide and versatile. Next, we see another example that is made out of banana fiber. It's called Barong Tagalog. Barong Tagalog is considered as the Philippines' national shirt for men. And this embroidered means 刺绣的. This embroidered shirt is made out of lightweight material, such as banana fiber. And they're usually worn untucked. Untucked, I give you a Chinese definition, 不塞进去的. Usually when we wear a shirt, we tuck it in, meaning tuck it under your pants, so you look more professional. But for this Barong Tagalog, you don't tuck it in, and you wear an undershirt beneath, because this shirt is quite translucent. Translucent means 半透明, so you have to wear 一个内衣 underneath. And Barong Tagalog comes from the word barrel, which means outfit. Outfit means 套装. And it's worn on special occasions such as wedding, national holidays, and birthday party. And if you remember, several years ago when the APAC meeting was hosted in Philippines, the leaders at that time, the leaders around the world, were all invited to wear the Barong Tagalog. And that was the time people around the world got to see this national shirt and become quite popular. And this is an example of Barong Tagalog. When I was in Philippines, I saw them for sale in a department store, and they are not cheap. The prices range from $100 to $300. That depends on craftsmanship and also depend on the embroidery on the shirt. As I said, it's translucent, so you have to wear an undershirt. Okay, so next time when you go to the Philippines, you can take a look at this this in their department store. Is quite fashionable. And next, I am going to take you to Malacca. Malacca is 马六甲, and to look at tree shots. I was in Malacca several times. I've been there several times, and I love this town. And Malacca is a UNESCO World Heritage Site since 2008. UNESCO means 教科文组织世界文化遗产 since 2008. And in this picture, you see the colorful tree shots lined up outside of a historical building. Tree shot, also known as pedicab. Pedi means feet, and cab means taxi. So it really means 脚踏计程车. Or some people call it rickshaw or tree shaw, but they really mean the same thing. And the highly decorated tree shaws are one of the icons of Malacca. Icon is means a 象征 symbol of Malacca. And then when you get to Malacca, this is probably one of the first things you see. And before industrialization 工业化，所以工业化之前呢 tree shaw was one of the main public transportation modes. Mode means 模式. So public transportation, 公共交通模式. Because back in the old days, buses and taxis were not very common. So as time goes on, tree shaws have been gradually phased out by local residents. Phased out means 淘汰. So 渐渐的被当地居民淘汰 because they could choose other convenient transportation modes such as bus and taxi. So the tree shaw driver have been struggling. So fortunately, visitors to Malacca keep the pedicab drivers busy riding and busy decorating, and they keep keeping this cultural lineage alive. So we saw the tree shaw now. I wanted to show you the tree shaw 100 years ago. So a little history about Malacca. Malacca, 马六甲, is on the coast of Strait of Malacca. Strait means 海峡, 就是马六甲海峡. So this city is strategically important. 战略上非常重要. So therefore, many groups of people moved and settle down there. As you can see, there's a group of Chinese children in the background, and the tree shaw driver transporting passengers. And take a look at it, how simple and how undecorated the tree shaw was in the old days. And their purpose is really to carry people around. And let's look at the contrast. Okay, so this is a pedicab, also means tree shawl, and that's decorated for a wedding. And this is particularly for an Indian wedding. When you go to Malacca, you can enjoy a 30-minute ride on a selected route. Route means 路线, around some of the city's historic buildings. And 30 minutes on this beautifully decorated tree shawl will cost you about 25 Malaysian ringgit, which is about 240 NT dollars, 240块台币 for 30分钟 in 那个历史的看历史古迹。So for many people heading to Malacca, a ride in one of these colorful tree shawl is part of the wonderful experience. And your $240 will keep the tree shaws in business and help this design concept to keep going, and the drivers make a living in and keep decorating these beautiful pedicabs. Next, we'll go to another country which is not too far. We'll go to Indonesia. Next, we'll go to Indonesia and look at Indonesian batik. If you study textile, you might have already known what is batik. If you're not familiar with it, batik is an ancient art form practiced in Indonesia and then made with wax-resistant dye. Wax means la, so it's called la lan on fabrics. And then in this picture, you see the design of one of the batik. So again, what's batik? Batik is an ancient art form of Indonesia made with wax-resistant dyeing technique on fabric. Before we go further into discussing batik, when you look at Indonesia, a lot of history and the culture came from the island of Java. So that's where we will focus in terms of the creation of batik. In the island of Java, there are two kinds of batik. One is called coastal batik. Like the word says, coastal means 靠岸边的. So coastal batik has a history of mixing native and foreign cultures. Because being on the coast, there are ships coming and going, and the ships will bring foreign motifs and designs, and this will integrate with the local design and create his own kind of pattern. It's a newer model compared to inland batik. Inland batik is made by select experts. So these experts will live near the palace, and his design is more intricate. Intricate means 错综复杂的. So, and I will show you some examples of coastal and inland. So we'll go to next slide. So here we have an example of coastal batik from Java, Indonesia. You can take a moment to look at the motif and see if you can identify if there's any foreign motif. Personally, I think the the motif is the blue one, the blue motif. That reminds me of the cloud motif from China, 云的图案 from China. But that's just my personal opinion. But I think it's a beautiful piece. So this is an example of coastal batik. And next, I will show you an example of inland batik. Here we have an inland batik. In the center of the design, we see a bird-like motif. And that's actually a bird. And this is called Garuda. Garuda is a national symbol of Indonesia. Garuda is a mythical golden eagle. Mythical means 神话的 mythical golden 金色的鹰老鹰 mythical golden eagle with roots in Hindu and Buddhist mythology. And it's part man 一部分是人一部分是鸟 part bird. Just like I said, Garuda is a mythical golden eagle with roots in Hindu and 佛教 the mythology 神话学 and being the national emblem means symbol. National symbol in Indonesia, this bird symbolizes strength, 力气 and power, while the gold color symbolizes greatness, 伟大和辉煌 and glory. And when you go to Indonesia, you'll see this mythical golden eagle in many places. And the national airline of Indonesia is named after this bird called Garuda Indonesia. So Garuda has become a widely fashionable motif, especially for menswear. 男装变得非常时尚的图案。I give you an example of Garuda being part of fashion. Okay, so next time when you see this motif on the batik, you recognize it. Oh, it's Garuda. So next, we'll go to look at other kinds of batik. Next, we'll go to look at batik tulis. Batik tulis, meaning hand-drawn batik. And it's quite understandable when we say hand-drawn batik. So patterns on this batik are drawn, 是用画的 with a pencil and redrawn. So first draw with pencil, 然后再画一次 with hot wax using canteen. Canteen is a pen-like tool that consists of a small copper reservoir, 一个小小的铜容器 with a spout, 有一个出口 and that's where the hot wax go through and you can write it and draw it like a pen. And the whole process is complex and time consuming, 非常耗时间的 complex 复杂的 But the finished look 最后看起来 is more organic. Organic here means more natural, 比较自然 and one of a kind as it is entirely handmade. One of a kind means unique, 非常独特 and the batik tulis is more expensive than printed and stamped batik. And because it's so intricate, many collectors are going after batik tulis. So next I show you batik tulis and the canteen. Remember that pen, the pen-looking tool that they use to draw the wax on the fabric. And you can see how time-consuming and complex it can be. Next, we have batik cap and batik plankan. Batik cap in English means stamped batik, and batik plankan means printed batik. Both kinds of batik are less expensive options, and they are also available in markets. So when you go to Indonesia, especially Java, you see lots of batiks available. So I hope this overview can help you see the difference between batik cap, batik plankan, and batik tulis. And the stamp batik made with high quality cloth may look similar to hand-drawn batik. Hand-drawn batik means batik tulis. So when you are in a market, be careful and avoid paying batik tulis prices for stamped and printed batik. And typically, when you are in Indonesia, you see batik tulis can cost around 100 to 200 US dollars. It could be more, depending on the material and the technique. I just give you a normal price range. Remember, the unit is USD, that's a 美元. So you can multiply by 30 by yourself. And the batik cap and batik plankan cost around 10 US dollars. It's quite important to know the difference because when I was there, I was quite confused because a lot of people said, yeah, this is batik tulis, look at the quality. But just like it says here, a lot of batik cap is made with 高品质的布. So you will think, oh yeah, maybe they are batik tulis. So in the next slide, I will show you batik cap. Batik cap means stamp batik. And many people who are in textile designing are very familiar with this technique. We just stamp, and later you dye it. The process compared to batik tulis, this is much straightforward and less complicated, 比较不复杂. Next, in the slides, you see a group of women dressed in their beautiful batik outfits on October 2nd. Many Indonesians celebrate National Batik Day. Why? Because on October 2nd, 2009, UNESCO, which I said earlier, UNESCO 就是国际教科文组织 officially recognized 真合法的认同了 batik as the masterpiece of oral and intangible heritage of humanity from Indonesia. So to celebrate this occasion, 为了纪念教科文组织的认同，蜡染为世界文化遗产。The government encouraged the Indonesian people to protect, promote, and develop the craftsmanship of batik. So therefore, on October 2nd, this day is set up as a National Batik Day. And many Indonesians wear batik in honor of this ancient tradition. And they are very proud of this fabric. So next time when you go in Indonesia on October 2nd, don't be surprised to see people dressed in their batik outfits. Okay, so that's our trip in Indonesia, especially Java. And next, we'll go to Bangladesh. Bangladesh in Chinese, Mongjiala, and Bangladesh is in South Asia, surrounded by India. And here we're looking at a woman drawing alpana. And alpana, another word for alpana is ritual painting, is a South Asian folk art style traditionally practiced by women, consisting of motif pattern symbols that are painted on the ground or on the walls. And then when you go to Bangladesh or the Bengal part of India, you will see them. You will see people paint them on walls and grounds, and especially on religious occasions. So, like I said, alpana is a South Asian folk art traditionally practiced by women. Geometric and organic patterns are painted on walls and floors on religious occasions. Geometric means 几何的，和一些有机的图案。那有机的图案 meaning natural patterns like flowers, creepers. Creepers means 藤蔓 and things like that are painted on walls and floors. How do they do it? Very simple. These skillful women, these artists, use fingertips, 用它的指端、手指的指尖 and the twigs 就是树枝 and the thread 线 soaked 浸泡在染料里面的线 to draw. Alpanas are drawn in a freehand style, meaning they don't use stencils. So when you see this drawing in Bangladesh or Bengal, India, you couldn't help but amaze how patient these people can be, squatting on the ground, 蹲在地上耐心的画. And this is simply amazing. And this is a common example of what they draw on the ground. And some people call it lotus, some people call it water lily, because to them means the same thing. Yes, these two flowers look very similar. The lotus or lily is the common flower in Bangladesh. And the white water lily is the national flower of Bangladesh. This flower blossoms. Blossom means 开花, mainly in rainy season. But I would like to point out the difference between lotus and water lily. The difference is that water lilies leaves, 它的叶子 and the flowers 和它的花 both float on water surface. 叶子跟花都浮在水面上 okay? And the lotus leaves and flowers are emergent. Emergent meaning 出土的, 凸出来的, or rise above water surface. Otherwise, 不然的话, these two flowers look very similar. Next, I want to show you a village. It's called Alpana village in Bangladesh. In this village, it's a very interesting village in which the women in this village are all artists that paint the walls from the kitchen to the walls outside with, like I said, organic motifs like flowers, leaves, and some animals. So next time when you go to Bangladesh, you can visit a Tikil village. In this village, women use the walls and floors like a canvas, 当一个画布一样. So they just paint from kitchen to bedroom. So the space is full of their craftsmanship. Craftsmanship means 它的匠艺, 工匠艺, is full of their skills and talent too. What do they use? They use a local red clay. Clay really means 土, so 他们有当地的红土, chalk, and the white paint soaked in rice. And that was in the past. But now, according to the women, they said now the Alpana is painted with commercial colors. Commercial, this is 贸易的. Commercial colors really means the colors that you can buy in the market. So these colors are probably chemically made, and they are long-lasting, 它比较持久一点. Great, so I hope you are inspired by these women. And then before we go on to our next destination, next we'll go to Nepal. Nepal means 尼泊尔, and Nepal geographically 地理上 is sandwiched. 被夹在 is sandwiched between China and India, and but Nepalese are heavily influenced by Indian traditions. And here we will look at Nepalese string puppets. String 就是线, puppet 就是那个布偶. The Nepalese string puppets are called putali, and they are the best known puppets in Nepal. As you can see, the putali are suspended. Suspend meaning 悬挂 from wooden sticks. 木棒子上面悬挂下来, and the thread attached to the headdress, the back, and the hands. 那个线就连接到它的头饰和两双手上面和它的背部, so that the master can manipulate the sticks and play these string puppets. So putali is a type of marionette. Marionette means a string puppet. And each puppet wears a robe of traditional fabric. Robe means 袍子, 就传统布料做的袍子. And the headdress. Headdress 就是头冠或者是头饰. And two masks. So these puppets are actually two-sided. 它们是双面的. Why do they have two masks? Because the two masks allow the puppet to play two characters at the same time. They just flip around and they become a different character. When I was in Nepal, I saw the puppet and I was instantly in love with the design, especially it's double-sided. 我们的布袋戏is a little bit different because it's one-sided. So if you collect puppets, this is a very good choice. The heads of the puppets are made out of papier-mâché or clay. And the faces are painted to look like real masks used in theater. 所以他们的脸其实是画出来的是像一个面具，而不是一个真人的脸。And we'll go to the next slide, and I will show you like I said, they look like masks. And these masks do not look like real people, but they look like deities. Deities means 神明。所以这些面具 design 被设计来 resemble 就是看起来像神明。And one of the most popular one 最普遍的你会看到 Ganesha 象头神。And maybe you're familiar with Ganesha because I see them sometimes in Taiwan. So what does Ganesha represent? 那它代表什么呢？ So Ganesha is widely worshipped. Worship 就是祭拜 as the remover of the obstacles and thought to bring good luck. Obstacle means 阻碍或障碍，障碍的移除者会带来好运。And Ganesha is also the guardian of arts and sciences and the deity of intellect and wisdom. Guardian means supporter. 它也是艺术跟科学的守护者 and the deity of intellect and wisdom. 智慧跟聪明的神。So Ganesha is worshipped on both religious and secular occasions. 所以宗教的跟世俗的情况下，它都会被来祭拜 ，such as buying a vehicle 买车的时候 ，or starting a business 你要开业的时候。So when you are in Nepal, you see this puppet, you will see many of them wears a Ganesha mask. And next, I'll show you the Putali puppet in action. You can probably see, if you see carefully, you can actually see they are two-sided. One mask and the other mask on the back of it. And the mask-like faces of the puppets, like I said, are not human or realistic, 也不是真实的, but shaped and painted 被塑造出来，被画出来 to represent familiar deities 比较熟悉的神明 such as the elephant god to tell stories to children. When you are in Nepal, each of these puppets cost about 150 NT dollars. So they are not expensive and they are so pretty. The next time when you are there, make sure you buy some. But the price I paid, $150, was about 7 years ago. So the inflation is high, 通膨还蛮高的, so I don't know what is it now. But make sure you bargain. 记住你要讨价还价一下. Okay, so next we'll go to a country that is less familiar. Next, we'll go to Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan in Chinese called 亚塞拜然. You might wonder where is this country? It's located in Central Asia on the coast of Caspian Sea. 在里海的岸上. This country is quite famous for rock making. And here I show you an example, a design of Azerbaijani rugs. For people in Azerbaijan, rug making is a family tradition. It wasn't set up for commercial reason, meaning to sell and make money. It was really a family tradition that are passed down orally and through making rugs. So a lot of symbols and stories are woven into the rugs, and these rugs are passed down to the next generation So in a sense, the tradition is passed down. So in the past, 在过去, every young girl had to learn the art of weaving rugs. And rugs she wove became part of her dowry, and she would carry the rugs when she get married to the men's side of that family. In the case of a newly married son, 一个新婚的儿子的情况下呢, it was his mother who wove a large rug for his new household. So when I was told this tradition, I was quite interested, especially after you know what's happening, you look carefully at all the designs and motifs in the carpet, hoping to find out part of their family stories. And in Azerbaijan, the work is quite divided, 相当分配得好. Men shear, women spin and weave. Traditionally, men shear the sheep. Shear means to cut, 剪羊毛, shear the sheep in spring and autumn, 在春天跟秋天, while women collected dyestuffs, 去收集染料, and spun and dyed the yarn in spring, summer, and autumn. And in this slide, you can see piles of wool being untangled and ready for spinning. Next, I'll discuss with you some of the popular, widely used motifs in their rug design. One of the most popular ones is called Buta. The Buta motif has an origin that can trace back to 可以回溯回 Persia, 波斯 is now we call Iran. And this motif is widely used across Asia, and it is especially common in carpets. And this same motif also became very popular in India. And later, when this motif was transported or being used in Europe, its name changed to paisley. This symbol, Buta, in Azerbaijan, is associated with divine fire. 这个图案在亚塞拜然呢，也跟它的神圣的火有相关性。When you go to Azerbaijan, you will see first few things you will see is fire, because this country produces oil, and the oil is on the surface. And when you go into downtown, you will see oil field with fire burning. So that's why people in this country for generations are fascinated with fire, 火. So Buta in this country is associated with fire. Another common motif is the cross, 十字架. And this is a very ancient religious sign used in many cultures. But in Azerbaijan, cross, 十字架, is associated, 是跟什么有关联呢? Is associated with fertility and wealth. 生育跟财富有关. It doesn't have that meaning with Jesus Christ. when you are in Azerbaijan, when you are in their capital city, Azerbaijan, Baku is the name of the capital city. 它的首都叫做 Baku, and you can visit the Azerbaijan Carpet Museum. This museum houses 容纳了 the largest collection of Azerbaijani carpets in the world. At the same time, they have items from items such as bronze, embroidery, and jewelry all are also on display. So if you love textile, especially rugs and carpets, don't miss this museum. So this museum is a great place for textile enthusiasts. Enthusiasts means lovers. 布料爱好者，布料喜好者。This museum was established in 1967. It displays Azerbaijani carpets and rugs with historical and modern weaving techniques. And it houses 房子当动词变成容纳 the largest collection of Azerbaijani carpets in the world, and over 10,000 items of ceramics, 瓷器 metalworks, 金属品 and the jewelry, 首饰 and the embroidery, garments means 衣服 and the rugs are on display. With so much to see, you only pay 120 NT dollars to go inside. When you go there, make sure you take a picture of the outside of this museum, because this museum is designed to look like a rolled up rug, if you didn't notice that. Okay, so that is Azerbaijan. Remember, what I'm talking to you now is an overview, 只是个概论 of different designs and art around the world. And if you're interested in any aspects, 如果你对任何层面有兴趣的话 I highly recommend that you investigate and study more about it. And after Azerbaijan, we'll go to Australia. Oh, before go to Australia, this slide shows you Azerbaijani people love to decorate their interior, 他们的室内 with rugs. Traditionally, carpets were used to cover floors, decorate interior walls, sofas, chairs, beds, and tables. So the interior pretty much looked very comfortable. Next, we'll go to Australia. We'll look at the contemporary indigenous Australian art. Before I continue with this part of my talk, some people use Aboriginal, some people use indigenous. Aboriginal 中文听起来比较像土著的 ，indigenous means 原住民的。A lot of people become aware that Aboriginal, this word has negative association, 比较有负面的关联。So in this talk, I changed the Aboriginal to indigenous, just to be polite and not to be negative in my meaning. So here I'm talking about contemporary, 当代的澳洲原住民艺术。And this is a picture of one of their creation. But again, in Australia, you can still hear people use Aboriginal art. because this term has been used for many decades. So don't be surprised, the word is still used, Aboriginal. So, Aboriginal art, Australian Indigenous art. So drawing cultural stories. For the Indigenous people of Australia, there's no written language. So their stories are passed down through symbols and icons. 一些符号和象征。And this is also a way for them to record knowledge, 记录下一些知识 and the events of the land, 他们土地上的事件。And this has been their tradition for about 3,000 years. In 1971, a school teacher named Jeffrey Barden, he noticed Indigenous men were telling stories, and they would draw the symbols in the sand. 他会把那些象征画在沙子上。And when he saw that, he encouraged the Indigenous people to paint the stories onto canvas and the board. And this encouragement started the Indigenous art movement in Australia, all because of a school teacher called Jeffrey Barden. And nowadays, when you go to the national museums in Sydney or in other parts of Australia, you will see Indigenous art, and they are just beautiful. And then when you look at these paintings, you think of Jeffrey Barden for his initial encouragement. So in our memory, Jeffrey Barden passed away. 他过世于 2003. And in this picture, you can see Mr. Barden working with the Indigenous people and how he investigates the signs, icons, and symbols, what they used to draw in the sand. Next slide, I give you a title called Art Plus Culture Means a Brighter Future. And this is, remember what I said about the cultural creativity product, 文创产品, and I think this is a very, very good example. This picture shows Indigenous people creating artwork. Contemporary Indigenous art has been an income, an incentive for remote Indigenous communities to make their income. 所以创作这些艺术品变成许多遥远的这些原住民社区主要的收入来源。And in many remote communities, this is the only business which provides significant income that support the family. The maker is able to make a living. When we look at our Indigenous painting, you can see a lot of symbolism, icons, and signs. And that's something we'll look at in the next slide. Indigenous art as a contemporary art form. Indigenous Australian art can claim to be the world's longest continuing art tradition. Before Europeans settled in Australia, indigenous people use many art forms, such as wood carving, body painting, bark painting. Bark means 树皮，画在树皮上面 ，and rock carving, 雕石头 and weaving. And elements of these art forms are all used in their contemporary drawings, which we can see in museums and galleries. So when we look at this indigenous painting, first we want to know how to decode the symbols. So I'll give you some of the examples what the symbols might mean. For example, people sitting, journey with resting place. 一个旅程有休息的地方 mountains, no problem, and a traveling track, and a human track, and the hunting boomerang. Boomerang is 回力镖, and for the indigenous people, it's used for hunting. Honey ant, rain, 4 men sitting with spears. Spear means 矛，打猎用的那个矛。Next, guana or lizard. Guana is a large lizard in Australia, and they have a symbol for the lizard. 2 men sitting. And finally, umara. Umara is a spear throwing device. 丢毛器. So it's a way to throw the spear far and hit the prey or the 猎物. Again, there are a lot more symbols used in their painting. So this is just giving you some example. So next time when you go to the museums in Sydney, look at indigenous painting closely and enjoy the symbolism used in their design. Next, we'll go to Mexico. This is a Mexican sugar skull. A skull means 头颅. In Mexico, you can see skull that's made of 糖. And this highly decorative skull have a long history. And these skulls represent death. Why do they have sugar skulls? First, we need to talk about Day of the Dead. In 中文叫做亡灵节. A Day of the Dead is traditionally celebrated in Mexico on November 1st and 2nd. And in other countries, they celebrate something similar called Halloween, 万圣节, and that's on October 31st. But in Mexico, it's on November 1st and 2nd. On this day, people leave sugar skulls on an altar as an offering. And sometimes these skulls are decorated with the names of the loved ones who have died. 所以那个 skull 上面可能会有那个刚死去亲朋好友的名字，它会放在祭坛上面。And this holiday involves family and friends gathering to pay respects and to remember friends and family members who have died. 所以在这一天，亲朋好友会聚集在一起来缅怀过世的亲朋好友。And these skulls represent death. But for many Mexicans, death doesn't have to be bitter. It can be sweet. 死亡
不是永远都是苦的，它可以是甜的。So sugar skulls are also given to friends as a way to show appreciation. Appreciation means 感激。Skull art is an indigenous Mexican art celebrates the skeleton, 骨架, and use it as a regular motif. And the skull art is associated with Coalique. This word is came from the indigenous Mexican goddess. So I give you the pronunciation. 我给你它的发音方式。Coalique, the goddess of earth and death. 她是个地球和死亡的女神。It is portrayed. Portray means 描绘。用什么描绘呢？ With a necklace of human hearts, hands, and a skull of pendant. A skull pendant. Necklace means 项链，人心做出来的项链 ，and hands and 头颅的坠子。She's the guardian. We used the word guardian in my previous slide. Guardian means supporter or 守护者 of fertility, life, death, and rebirth. And that is why when you go to Mexico, don't be surprised to see a lot of skull-related motifs. In Asia, in Chinese culture, many people think that is a taboo. 那是个禁忌. But for Mexicans, it's a celebration. Here, I give you a picture of Coalique, the guardian of fertility, life, death, and the rebirth. And then you can notice that it has a necklace of human hearts and hands and the skull pendant, 那个头颅坠子. You can see some common motifs, 一些普遍的图案 found on skulls. Sugar skulls are colorful traditional pieces of southern Mexican art. 南墨西哥艺术. A sugar skull features a human skull shape that is decorated with vibrant flowers. 你会看到很生动的花 swirls, 漩涡 and diamonds, 钻石 crosses, 十字架 and hearts, 和人心心脏. And these are common motifs you see on skulls. And then when you go to Mexico, there are many products with this design. And when I was there, I came back with 2 skulls. I can't tell you a price because skulls were available in different materials. Some in sugar, some in ceramics, some were carved. So when you were there, you can buy them, but they are not expensive. I paid my skulls. I remember I paid $400 for a pair. 一对大概400块台币 so it's quite cheap. Of course, it could be it's more expensive. We'll go to Canada or look at totem poles. Totem poles in Chinese called 图腾柱. They are quite common in northwest of America and the Pacific Canada. Pacific means 太平洋岸的加拿大。They are called totem pole because they are different designs and symbols and icons carved on these large trees, large tree trunk. So like I said, totem poles are large sculptures carved from large trees, usually cedar. It can be a symbol of tribe or family or individual. So when you see totem poles in Vancouver, 温哥华, you can see them because they are representation of cultural heritage of native tribes. 文化的传承和当地的部落。Totem poles are large sculptures, 很大的雕刻 carved from large trees, usually cedar. It can be symbol of tribe, clan, family, or individual. The function of these poles are used to record, 来记录下 family stories, 家庭的故事, and the different animals are carved on them. And when he said record family stories, that reminds me of what we said earlier, the Azerbaijani rugs. They also use it as a way to record family stories. And due to the rainy climate of Pacific Canada, few examples carved before 1900 remain. Pacific Canada, the biggest city is Vancouver, 温哥华. It's very rainy. It rains a lot. So because it's made of wood, it gets rotten very easily. So it's very hard to keep these totem poles. That's why not many examples before 1900 are available to see. Next, we'll see types of totem poles. And this picture gives you a close-up look of the totem poles. And then you can see different animals are incorporated in the design. And then in the following slides, I will tell you different types of totem poles, and there are 6 types. So the 6 basic types of totem poles. The first type is house frontal poles. Its carvings tell the story of the family, clan, or village. House frontal, it really means something that they put in front of their house, 放在大门口前面. And second, we have house poles. Poles means 杆子. So house poles are interior poles. Interior means 室内. So they are 室内杆 that support the roof, 来支撑屋顶用的. They also tell family stories. And next we have mortuary poles. Mortuary is associated with death. So they are erected. Erected means 树立 at the death of an important individual and ashes of the deceased. Ashes means 骨灰. 骨灰往生人的骨灰 are placed in the upper portion of the pole. Portion means 部分，所以那杆子的上面那一部分会放的一些往生者的骨灰 and that is mortuary poles. Next we have memorial poles. These poles are erected a year after a person has died. As the word means, memorial means 纪念性的. And this memorial pole is to honor 来缅怀 the deceased 往生者. And next we have welcome poles. And these poles are erected at the edge of a stream or beach to welcome guests. Edge means 边缘, stream means 溪 or similar to a river. 来欢迎客人用的. And next we have shame poles. Shame we know is 耻辱. So these poles are created to embarrass individuals, 使不好意思其他人 if that person has unpaid debts, 没有付清的债务 or wrongdoing, 或做错了什么事情 and they will erect these shame poles for public to see which person has unpaid debts or did something wrong. Like I said, these totem poles are carved with animals. And for indigenous people in Canada, these animals have spirituality. That's why the local people call them spiritual animals. So here I give you some examples of the totem animals. Totem animals are guides who stay in your life throughout your spiritual journey. And then you can call on these animals when you are in need of their spiritual help. So each animal is associated with spiritual meaning. And in the next slide, I will give you some of the examples. And in these slides, you see examples of whales, bats, wolf, and the eagle. And all these animals have meanings. And some examples include bear, associated with power, dolphin, happiness, spider, creativity, butterfly, transformation. Crow means 乌鸦, which means spiritual strength, 精神上的力气. And the horse, independence. Fox, quick thinking, 它的思想敏捷度. And the deer, compassion. Eagle, freedom. Whale, devotion, 它的奉献. And the dog, protection. Owl, intuition. I give you a Chinese translation, 直觉, intuition. And the otter means 水濑. That means joy and affection. Affection means love, 爱意. And then finally, we have cobra. Cobra means 眼镜蛇. They represent dishonesty. The symbols can go on, and here are just some examples they have. The common examples they have, they carve on the totem poles. And if you are interested in investigating the spiritual guidance, I think they are quite interesting. There are other animals such as bats and wolves and things like that. And next, we'll go to Marshall Islands. And here, this example shows Marshallese amimono. People might wonder, where are Marshall Islands? Marshall Islands are south of Hawaii, north of Fiji. 在夏威夷的下面，斐济群岛的上面。So it's quite remote, 还蛮遥远的。So when you go there, it could be quite expensive in terms of flight tickets. Here, this is one of the stores that's showing the Marshallese handicraft. So the handicraft has been with the people in Marshall Islands for a long time, before the Japanese occupied in the early part of 20th century. So the Japanese army occupied during World War II. And that's why you see this word amimono. It sounds Japanese. And then the people in Marshall Islands adopt this word amimono to mean handicraft. Before Marshallese people adopted Japanese word amimono, they have their own local word called manach-jan. So a Marshallese tradition with a Japanese name. Handicrafting has been with the people in these islands before the Japanese occupation in the early 20th century. Occupation means 占领. So 在日本占领前, they have a long tradition with handicrafting, but Marshallese people use this word amimono to mean handicraft. And here is the local name, a local word for handicraft, manach-jan. People in Marshall Islands are excellent basketry weavers. And they use just basic materials such as coconut shoot and pandan leaves to make different household wares, from baskets to containers. And here is an example of weaving an oban. Oban is a circular wall decoration. As you see, the woman is holding. They use basic materials such as coconut shoot and the seashells as decoration. When you go to Marshall Islands, just like many other tropical islands, coconut trees are abundant. And the local people really have a good use of the coconut leaves and the coconut shoot membrane. And when you look at the word shoot means 幼苗. So the coconut shoot membrane and the pandan leaves. I give you the Chinese definition, 叫做香兰叶, pandan leaves, and the strips of coconut leaves. Strips means 长条状 of the 椰子叶 and the seashells. And the local Marshallese are able to create woven mats, work baskets, hats, ceremonial outfits. 仪式穿的服装 and a traditional wall ornament. Ornament means decoration, 装饰品 or oban. And oban have different prices depending on the sizes and the decorations. And the oban can cost roughly from 100 Taiwan dollars to up to 1,000 Taiwan dollars. And they are excellent wall decorations. And that gives you of atmosphere or flair of of tropical island. And the workmanship is just excellent. And on this slide, we see Marshall Islands Independence Day. Marshall Island Independence Day is on May 1st. And on this day, local people celebrate with their local outfits made out of coconut-related fiber. And they're celebrating in performances with local dancers. Because of this culture, and some people find similarity when they go to Hawaii, because the Hawaiian also use a lot of coconut fiber in their fabrics and textiles. Next, we'll go to Guatemala. And this is a Guatemala Kite Festival. And this festival has association with the Dead of the Dead in Mexico, because Guatemala Kite Festival is celebrated on November 1st, like the Day of the Dead in Mexico. And in Guatemala, this celebration is called All Saints Day. And on this festival, the celebration features giant, colorful kites. And these kites are flown over open fields and the cemeteries. So you can see how big these kites are compared to the height of a normal person. It could easily be 4 or 5 stories high. Like I said, this celebration is associated with All Saints Day. It's celebrated on November 1st. And people in Guatemala celebrate it with giant colorful kites flying over fields and cemeteries. Cemeteries means 墓园, white cemeteries. Because according to the tradition, souls of the deceased, again, we see this word deceased in, when we look at the slides about Mexico, deceased means 往生者。往生者的灵魂呢 can visit the living, 可以来拜访活人 once a year, 1年1次 for 24 hours during on this day. And that's why people are busy making these kites, because these kites act as a beacon, 一种信标 to help the spirits. The spirits here means 灵魂 to locate, 对，找到他们心爱的家人或朋友。So this Mayan tradition has a history of 3,000 years. And then when they make these kites, different messages are attached to the tail or to the string. So these messages could be carried onto the sky. So these slides give you a closer look of the design of the kites. Nowadays, many people incorporate social issues into the design of these kites. And social issues such as pollution, women's rights, and the environmental protection. And these become themes or motifs in when you see these different kites. So social issues are also addressed. Addressed here means mention, 提出一些社会的问题. As a custom evolved, custom means 习俗，习俗的演化. Families started attaching messages for the deceased to the tail or the string of the kite. 他们会连接一些讯息在那个风筝上面. And in recent decades, social issues are painted on the kite as messages regarding indigenous rights, 原住民的权利, and pollution, violence, women's justice, 女性正义, and more. And it's up to you to design the kite and see what you want to put up in the air for people to see. When the kites work their way up the sky, 当这些风筝飞上天呢, people hope these messages will reach the recipients. Recipient means 接收者, so they can get the message and understand the social issues and try to find solution for them. So how are the kites constructed? I give you a slide of the back of the kites, and that you have a better understanding of how these kites are constructed. Constructed means 建构, 建筑, 怎么做出来的. So long poles of bamboo are used to support the frame, as frame to support the whole structure. And again, look at the size of these kites. Like I said, some of these kites will be flown in the sky, 会飞在天上. But these kites, which are so big, they don't fly in the sky. Instead, 取而代之呢, these kites are used as backdrops, 是当作背景用的. So in front of it, people will play music and have food and picnic. And smaller kites, 小一点的风筝, they will be used to fly in the sky. So these giant works of art, these delicate works of art, some of which reach up to 20 meters across, 大概有可以高达20公尺, and are constructed out of bamboo, tissue paper, and glue, and the string, and feature elaborate designs that differ from year to year. 那每年会不同，那精心制作的设计 to, like I said, to reflect some of the issues they concern. All of the materials are natural, including the glue. And the glue is made of yucca flower mixed with lemon peel and the water. So when the celebration is over, and all these things are organic, and they could be either recycled or could be decomposed. 自己会在环境中腐败. So when you go to this celebration, you feel these people are very environmentally friendly. and which is something we need to remember when we have large events like this, because large events usually create garbage, and we want to reduce the amount of garbage we used in the celebration. I think that is something we should remember. So Guatemala is our last destination, and here I give you some of the words I underlined in the talk, and perhaps you still remember them, and if you don't, that's okay. You can always look them up and learn some new words. Remember, the talk is designed to show you the design and art around the world, and also for you to practice listening in English. So let's go over these words very quickly. Confine, pandemic, decomposition, icon, treasure, phase out, batik, intricate, motif, emblem, mythical, stencil, marionette, worship, headdress, obstacle, guardian, secular, dowry, sheer, enthusiasts, tribe, embroidery, garment, indigenous, altar, decode, offering, pendant, fertility, clan, deceased, erect, compassion, ornament, intuition, affection, membrane, and outfit. There are other words I didn't include in the list because I think the list is a little bit too long, but you can always look them up slide by slide in my talk. And finally, I want to thank you for watching me and thank you for listening to me, and you were a great audience.